Okay, so just like Anna mentioned, we'll get into all the topics that we're supposed to be covering today, but definitely this is something that is worth just taking an extra second. So as Anna mentioned, just in the news the last month, the number of cases of the grandparent scam in Windsor, Essex County area, it's a very large scam. Individual scams, you know, usually in the tens to hundreds of dollars and stuff like that with some of the email scams and other stuff that goes on. This one in particular is costing people thousands every single case. So this is something that definitely the Windsor Police want to kind of get a little extra information out and let people know that this is going on. One of the big things that Windsor Police is asking people, so for the ones that understand what this scam is there anybody that hasn't heard of this in particular or doesn't understand what it's about? So basically what the scammers are calling up people and they'll pretend that they're from law enforcement or they're from the jail up in Kingston or they're some kind of lawyer asking you for money for a grandchild. And they'll even have some information that might make this seem a little valid with people's Facebook or people's social media and information like that. And it's on your social media what your grandchildren's names are, or the fact that your grandchildren call you Nana or Papa or some other particular name in your family and they refer to you as that. They might have that information when they call you. Say, you know, your grandson Bobby, who calls you Nana, he's in jail right now and he needs, you know, money for bail or else he's going to be arrested, and they'll have some valid information that makes this scam actually work pretty well. So if you're aware of this scam, definitely discuss it with your friends and family members. This is one of those things that if you know that this scam is coming, you can easily just hang up the phone and the scam is useless. So a lot of the information that we go over, if you already know it's a scam, you just hang up the phone. There's no threat, there's no problem. The scam is basically diffused. So definitely let your friends, family, let them know, and just as the Windsor Police are saying, talk to your loved ones before the scammer does first. That is the best defense for any kind of scam, is let people know firsthand that these scams are coming, kind of like the grandparent scam or the Canada Revenue scam or all the other stuff that these people do. Just by letting you know, you already diffuse these guys when they call. So definitely make it something that you actually sit around the dinner table and discuss with family or friends and let them know that this is something that's really prevalent in Windsor, Essex. Yes?
Yes, my mother got a phone call like that a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And the person said, oh, it's your nephew, Mike. And my mom said, well, how's Vicky? And he said, well, I don't know who Vicky is. My mom said, then you're not my nephew.
That is a good way. What I'd recommend, because we know this is such a prevalent scam, but even if it wasn't, asking some of those personal questions, asking stuff only a family member might know, or even hanging up the phone if they say they're, you know, a lawyer in Kingston at the Kingston Penitentiary and your grandson's about to be locked up. Say, okay, I'll call the jail in a minute then, and give them a call back. A lot of these scams rely on you doing something right away. They want you to panic. They want you to not use your normal thinking skills that you have and get you to respond quickly and make a poor decision on falling for the scam. So hanging up and calling the police or calling someone else, verifying that this information is actually real if you think it might be. Let's hope that none of our family members are actually in jail looking for bail money, but it could happen, I guess. But make your own phone calls and check into it yourself before you make a decision on it. Yes?
How about when they say you want your ducks changed?
Well, that's up to you. You know, personally, if they called me up for that and asked me for my ducks cleaned, well, I don't have ducks in my place, so that would definitely be a problem. Yeah, there are some real services out there that offer that, and they usually have just aggressive advertising and aggressive phone calls. That's not quite the same as a scam. So that's just somebody pushing a service that you may not have actually wanted to call them over. So let them know just politely. It's like, if I need your service, I'll call you. And you just hang up the phone. So for last week, we gave out the booklet. And for anybody that doesn't have one already, unfortunately, our supplies are almost down to nothing. We're waiting for the second edition to be published soon. So if you don't have a copy, you can actually go to the Windsor Police website. Right on their main page, they have a scroller giving you up-to-date news. And if you click through the scroller on the 4th page, there's a link to actually that entire book online. And you can even share that with friends or relatives that may not be attending here, and people who want to share that information. Just let them know that link and let them know it's available there, and they can read up all the information, because I just don't have any more to give out.
Excuse me,
Yes?
get back to the scams, can they actually see your house? Because I had one guy claim that he could see my house, because they claimed it wasn't my house.
No, well, they might be able to look up a picture of it online, but that's about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of these scams have some effectiveness, is when it comes to the digital stuff, a lot of people don't know what's possible. So when these scammers tell you they can see your house, or they can do this, or they can see your computer, it's relying on information that you may not have, and kind of exploiting the fact that you might not know enough information of whether they can actually see your computer.
But they can see your house. You can Google it. And
That's
get-
right, but the picture might be 2 years old or something like
Yeah,
that.
sometimes you can
Yeah.
tell it was old.
They don't have a live camera on your house.
No.
But yeah, it's just,
But they
anybody
can
can
see
do
your
that.
house.
So a scammer saying they can do that to see your house doesn't really present any more threat than anything else anyway. So they just try to get stuff, the main thing in scams is to get you to react quickly and not use your normal thinking skills. They want you to panic and make a bad decision really fast. So trying to scare you, saying they can see your house, or they can see your computer, or your grandchild's in jail, they want a panic reaction because you don't think clearly when you're in that mode. So with this stuff, like I said, please make sure it's a conversation you have with some friends and family. Yes?
This scam where they say, I can see your house, is this blackmail? If you don't pay me, I'm
They're
gonna
just
come?
trying to say anything to get you to panic. That's all. And whatever the scam might be, you have to pay us money or do this or do that. All of it is just relying on getting you to panic first. Yes.
They're not looking at your picture in real time.
No.
That's what I'm saying, so, because like mine, they looked it up and now it's like what it was 2 years ago, so it's not real time. So
No, not at all.
who cares?
Yeah. And like I said, they just trying to get what the stories change, the scams change, all those things change, but the psychology behind it doesn't. Whether it's now or 100 years ago, scams always existed. And a lot of scams, like I said, the psychology behind it is to get you to panic and make a bad decision. Yes?
Yeah, this is the point I wanted to highlight actually with you, to tell them that to rush you into making a quick decision.
That's right. Yep. It's part of most scams.
That's the,
So, in anything that you think might be a legitimate phone call or a legitimate problem or something's going on, don't react to it on the spot. Tell them, you'll think about it, you'll talk to your friend, you'll talk to the bank, you'll talk to the police, and you'll call them back. Right there, you'll diffuse probably 99% of scams because they want you to react right now and make a bad decision. So tell them you'll think about it and you'll call them later. And right there, it will diffuse a lot. If it's a real problem and it was the actual police or actually Canada Revenue or actually some law enforcement, there isn't anybody I've encountered in 20 years that is offended by you telling them, I'll call you back at your office. They'll say, okay, that sounds good. And you pick up the phone and you use your own phone number you got from somewhere and call them back. So of course, telling them you'll call them back with the phone number they give you, well, that's not going to be very effective. But in reality, like Anna mentioned with the Canada Revenue call she got this week, you tell them, I'm not giving you this information over the phone. I don't know who's calling me. You call Canada Revenue back on your own terms and call them and discuss what's going on. Nobody I know doing their job properly is going to be offended at that. So always use that to just kind of put off the decision making. I'll call you back after I speak to somebody. Okay. So with Wi-Fi security, a lot of people will tell you that this needs to be secure and you need to have passwords and updates and everything else. But what I find doing all this and teaching in the community is a lot of people don't get the level of threat that they should understand. So they just tell you change your password, but don't really explain why or how important it is, or deal with your Wi-Fi security. But why are you doing that? What's the reason for it and how important it actually is? So we try to discuss some of this stuff. So as far as your Wi-Fi security at home, I would say it's on the lower end of problems that you might have with your computer, but it's still something you should be aware of. So with that being said, the likely threat when you don't have proper Wi-Fi security might be your neighbor jumping on your Wi-Fi, somebody driving by and logging into your internet. Some of those issues are the most prevalent things. Somebody actually hacking your router at home and getting into your network or getting into your computer, yes, it can happen. But the level of threat of that actually happen is pretty low. There's not a lot of people driving around just hacking regular people's Wi-Fis. So the majority of problems that you're going to run into might be your neighbor logged into your Wi-Fi and downloading everything in the world on Netflix and you get the bill for it, or possibly somebody even using your Wi-Fi and doing something illegal, downloading illegal information or sending a threat to the police or calling in a bomb threat, and they're doing it over your Wi-Fi. At the end of the day, you're responsible. There is cases where, even having your grandchild come over for the weekend and they download an illegal movie onto from your Wi-Fi, you could end up with the bill or have your Wi-Fi cut off from your service provider. So at the end of the day, if your name's on that service contract, whatever goes on with your Wi-Fi is your problem legally as well, never mind just financially. So if someone else is using your Wi-Fi and they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, or they're just using it without your permission and racking up the bill, you want to keep your Wi-Fi actually secure. And like I was mentioning, somebody hacking your Wi-Fi because it's not secure, it's not really a threat that you're going to encounter on a regular basis. Somebody using your Wi-Fi without your permission, that's a more likely scenario.
How would they do that?
Well, if there's no password on it, like for here, if anybody who has devices within their tablets or phones, you can log into the Wi-Fi, but you can't do it without their password.
Okay, so our Wi-Fi at home, that's security.
You have a password, that's right. So as long as it's a decent password and a reasonable one, you don't have to make it 700 characters long with, a symbol and a capital and then a haiku and a feather, and you don't have to do all that kind of stuff. As long as it's within a reasonable level, you're fine.
Okay, because we have it secured through our, like I have Bell, so.
Right, and they provide that security, and most of the time with Bell, yeah, they'll have a sticker with that password right on it, and you can change that if you want, but a lot of times it's fine.
Yeah,
It's
because it's
That's right, so
automatic,
just like I had mentioned, this is a level of concern. You should know about it, be aware of it, and take care of it, but it's not something that every single day you should be running and checking your router and make sure it's secure. So with a lot of stuff that I do, I also try to teach people how important it is, what level they need to pay attention to. With this, it's important, but as long as it's looked after, you can dismiss it and move on. Yes?
So the password to come with your Wi-Fi setup, it's okay just to leave that, say that you need to change?
Some of them, and we'll actually cover some of that here. So some of them, Bell, Cogeco, they have, we'll even move forward here. So with the weak security, sometimes with the provider who provides your modem or your Wi-Fi router, they'll have just general passwords on it, or you might even had it for 15 years and Bell is not going to call you up and say, hey, you should get a new router from us because this old one's not secure. And a lot of times it's up to you to kind of keep up on that and bug them to provide you with new hardware when it's time. So you may even notice if you go to someone's home or you're at a business, your phone might actually pop up and say, this Wi-Fi signal isn't actually a secure signal. And you might see a message like this. I know it's a little washed out, but you may actually see the message on there saying that this Wi-Fi signal is not secure. So what it's referring to is the type of security. So as you're in your home or at work or wherever else it is, you talking over the Wi-Fi is encrypted. It's secured back and forth. The type of encryption needs to be kept up to date, because just like everything else, after a few years of a type of encryption being out, people are going to learn how to hack into it. So you definitely want to make sure that the type of security that your router is capable of doing is always up to date. So at home, you're going to end up with one of two scenarios. You're either going to have your modem connected up to the internet, and then you have your own Wi-Fi router that you set up yourself, or you might be with Cogeco or Bell, and all it is just one box, it does everything. So it does your internet for you, it does your Wi-Fi for you, it does all those things together. So depending on which way it's set up, you still should keep up on the security that's available for it. If it's a newer device from Bell or Cogeco or one of the companies that provide you the all-in-one device, make sure it's up to date. And you can even call them and have them manage that and look into it for you. If it's your own, then we're going to go through some steps that you guys can actually do to check the security on it and know if it's up to date and worth keeping. So when you're at home and you open up the internet, you go to a web page. Well, inside your Wi-Fi router, there's actually a built-in web page, and you go there and you can change all your settings and look at the security type, change your passwords, do all those kinds of things. So as mentioned in the book, if everybody does have it, it actually has a set of addresses that are pretty typical. So if you open up the internet, whether you use Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome or Safari on Apple devices, if you open up the internet and you type in one of these addresses, it'll probably take you right into the web page inside your Wi-Fi router. So once you're in there, you can give it the information and check if there's updates. You can change your password. You can do a whole bunch of management features. So when you're asking about should you change the password that comes with the router, yes, if it's one of these. Believe it or not, a lot of them will actually ship it out of the box and the password is password, or the admin name is admin. So I cannot count the number of times I've sat down in somebody's home, logged into the router, and all I did was type in one of these and then use one of these. They're like, wow, how'd you do that? It's like, well, they use some pretty simple stuff out of the factory. So if your password and your login information is just admin and admin or admin and password, you should probably change it. For other devices, we're mentioning with Cogeco or Bell, they might have a all-in-one unit that they provide you for your internet. A lot of times if you look on the bottom, it'll have the Wi-Fi password, name, and everything else. As long as it looks like it's something that's unique to your house, you don't really have to change it. It should be just fine. Okay, so once you're inside your router, or you're having Bell, Cogeco, or whatever internet provider, the security type that you need to be with currently in 2023 is called WPA2 with an AES. So what that means is it probably takes somebody about 40,000 years to crack that type of security. The previous security, the WPA or WPA1, they can crack into that in approximately 30 seconds right now. So yes, it's time to move forward to the next level of security. And in a couple of years, they might even update this and provide the next one. So if your router is capable of doing these settings, then you're still secure and your router is up to date. If you get into the security of your router or you're talking to your internet provider and your router cannot do these particular security settings, then that means the router is obsolete. You need to have them replace it or you buy the replacement and put it in place. So again, we're talking about a reasonably secure password. It doesn't have to be a 700 character password or anything else. It's for your Wi-Fi at home. You're not going to be under a constant attack from hackers driving down your street, but it needs to have a reasonable level of security on it. So any router that can't be updated or you can't do that security level that is current is definitely something that you should be replacing or asking your internet provider to replace for you. And if you're not even sure how to get in your router or you're having trouble with it, same thing again, your internet provider is usually pretty helpful when you give them a call and they can give you some guidance on how to get in here and check into the security on your equipment. Okay, so inside the router, you're going to find lots of options that a lot of people don't even know is inside your router. One of the big things I always get asked for help with is scheduling or even parental controls. So inside your router, most modern routers, you actually have the ability to tell it every day at 5 o'clock when you're having dinner, shut the Wi-Fi off. If you want to get your kids' attention, that's usually a really good way to do it. All of a sudden, everybody will come running out from upstairs in their bedrooms or in the basement and ask what's going on. And you can actually schedule. Same thing, I have parents ask me about the parental controls. Every night you can tell your router, shut off the Wi-Fi at 11 o'clock, it's a school night. So there's a lot of settings just inside your router that most people aren't actually aware of. So you can set up parental controls, you can set up scheduling. You can change those default passwords. So you can get inside there and put in your own custom password if you find that the one that they have is not secure, or is their password that they installed is just password. So obviously you want to get in there and change those default passwords. You can also change the admin password, the Wi-Fi password, and there's also options to get in there to update the software inside your router. So the router just works like anything else. It's a computer, but it doesn't have a screen on it like your regular computer, but it's just a computer inside. So that computer that operates inside your router, it needs to be up to date as well, just like the rest of your equipment. So if you go to the manufacturer's company who makes the router, they'll provide updates for you that you can download and put into the router. How you do that, I can't go into a lot of detail because every single company, every single router is different. I can only give you the information that the ability to do it is there. It's kind of up to you to look into it or get somebody to help you with it. Yeah, there was a question.
So what is the preset default usually for that?
It all depends. Every company is different, all that kind of stuff. But some of the defaults, like I said, you get into the password of some of the default routers, and the password is a password.
I meant for the updates. Do they set it as a default to auto update?
Some, not all. Yeah, there are some that do auto update, but or require you to just hit a button that says update, and it will do it for you. But everyone's different, so there's no standard right across. There should be, of course, but there isn't. So yeah, you can get into it and see if the software is up to date, and if it's not, it may only take an update and all of a sudden it is able to do the next level of security and you don't have to get rid of it. So look into that before you consider spending more money on more equipment, because the one you may have may still be just fine. Okay, there's a lot of talk with security software about VPNs. Has anybody heard of them or seen all the advertisements some of the security companies are doing? So what a VPN does, we kind of talked about this a little bit last week, and it's definitely discussed in some of the handouts that I gave last week. It provides a secure connection from you up to the company and then the company out to the internet. This is important in a lot of other countries other than Canada. We don't need this type of stuff, so most of these companies selling these services aren't even Canadian companies. They're companies from another country that have differing laws than we have. So in Canada, our internet provider cannot share your information. They can't sell your information. They can down in the US. So the US selling to US customers a VPN to secure their information and keep their stuff private makes sense over there. For Canadians, it's not really something that you need that much. You're welcome to use it. What a VPN does is it bounces your connection and shows you from somewhere else. So I can log in here, hook up to a VPN, and while I'm on the internet, my internet says that I'm in Florida, not in Canada. So it provides some privacy of hiding where you're at. But like I said, for Canadian citizens, it's not really necessary as a privacy issue. We already have extra privacy above and beyond what the states do. If you are traveling, yes, I would recommend using a VPN. Different countries have different laws about internet, your security, your privacy, what information are allowed to look into and everything else that aren't necessarily what you have while you're in Canada. So if you're traveling, I would recommend having a VPN and making use of it. If you're not and you're just sitting at home, then all you're doing is just giving Norton or McAfee or some other company extra money for something that's not really needed. If you're using free Wi-Fi, you're out and about, same thing again, kind of traveling outside of the home. You know, you're at Tim Hortons using the free Wi-Fi or somewhere else. Use a VPN, that's fine. In general, most people that I talk to in Canada that use a VPN, most of the times what they use it for is, like I was mentioning, you can log into the internet and it will show that you're from somewhere else. Now, how that's a benefit to Canadians? Well, if you don't like what's on Netflix on the Canadian Netflix site, I show up as I'm American, now I can get the American Netflix. That's about it. So other than just putting you in a different location so you see different information. As a security feature, VPNs aren't really relevant to us, and more likely you could probably spend your money on something a lot better. Okay, password security. This is one of the things out of the entire course, the entire book, my entire career. This is the most important thing that I need you people to learn. People are always bugging you, always see notices and public service announcements, everything about changing your passwords. And I'm gonna kind of bet that nobody actually explained to you why you need to do this. What is so important about this, or what is the problem with what you're doing already? So we'll actually take some time to explain it instead of me just telling you change your passwords, because there's a lot more to it than that makes it actually relevant and stuff that you guys should understand. So, how many people have a hard time memorizing their passwords? All right, can any of these people tell me who told you to do that? That's kind of the problem. So it's kind of an old wives' tale that you're supposed to memorize your passwords, and everybody we talk to complains about how difficult it is, and it's such a pain. You have all these passwords and you're supposed to memorize them. You're not actually supposed to memorize them. You're supposed to write them down. Working in IT, all the accounts and companies that I'm associated with, the number of passwords and accounts just for work is just out of the ordinary would be a good way to put it. And then I also have my own bank accounts, my own email, my own Amazon. So I have all my work stuff plus all my own stuff. If I printed out my password list, it is literally right now a 15-page Excel sheet. Every one of the passwords is different and unique. If I tried to memorize that, you guys would probably have to call an ambulance because it would cause some form of trauma. So no, you're actually not supposed to memorize this. People in the industry, in law enforcement, in IT, don't memorize this stuff because we know that's not a reasonable thing to do. I even remember during COVID, there was a Windsorite that was over in Detroit, and they were coming back through and they had their vaccine information in their email. And while they're standing at the border with the border guard in front of them, the panic that caused them, they couldn't think of what their email password was. It was, I believe, a $12,000 fine, because that's the only way he knew his password was by memory. And you can forget it, you can bump your head, you can become a client of the Brain Injury Association. A whole bunch of stuff can happen, or we just get older. Trying to memorize all this stuff is really a bad way to do it. Even standing in courts and doing court testimony, and 15 people will describe an attacker's shirt as 15 different colors. So knowing that that's human behavior and the average person is trying to memorize their password, it's just a recipe for failure. And what the biggest problem is with trying to memorize the passwords, or believing that you're supposed to memorize passwords, is you want to make it easy for yourself because it's a difficult task. So therefore you do all kinds of crazy mental acrobatics to try to come up with an easy password for you to remember. And that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing with this stuff. So because you may think that you have to memorize your passwords, a lot of people will take one password and they'll just use it everywhere because that's the one password they remember. That's one of the biggest problems we're having with law enforcement and the computer and IT industry is people reusing their passwords in multiple locations. The other thing with password habits, that believing you have to memorize it, is if you get this one password memorized that you use everywhere, well, when people are telling you you should change your password, you're going to fight tooth and nail not to, because now you have to try to memorize another one. When the entire problem is wrapped around not the passwords, not the website, not anything else, it's wrapped around problems with you remembering it. If you don't constantly rely on memorizing it, changing it doesn't matter. I have it written down, not memorized. So if I erase what I have written down and I fill it with something new, it caused me no harm or stress. So a lot of the stress that people feel about passwords is only for the reason that they're doing it completely wrong. Yes?
So what if you're traveling and you want to have a couple passwords for certain things?
Yep. Well, if you're traveling, you have your ID and passport. Do you keep that secure while you're traveling?
Yes,
Can you not do that with your password list as well?
I suppose, yeah.
Yes.
I'm just picturing getting in an accident and maybe, somebody finds this, somebody finds that, but that'd be.
No more so than anything else in your life that has to be secure.
Okay.
So it's not a bigger threat. As a matter of fact, I do get that question a lot. It's like, well, what if someone breaks in my home? Well, in 20 years of doing this stuff, I have not heard of one case where somebody's home was broken into and their password book was stolen. Even if it could, the password book's been stolen, you go and change your passwords. So you still have that same level of safety, security, and everything else with everything else in your life that is already supposed to be secure. So it's not that big of a deal to change passwords if you're not relying on them by memory, because now it's not really a big deal. Now, as far as using it in the same place, this is a huge, 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 huge problem. I cannot stress this one enough. One of the biggest problems that we're running into right now is something referred to as credential stuffing. This happened particularly, this is a news from just November, and we just had a couple other cases since November. This is with the WFCU. So what happened at the WFCU in November was somebody was accessing just a slew of customer accounts very rapidly and withdrawing all their money. WFCU actually noticed this and locked down everybody's account and threw out information about what was happening. None of it was about WFCU being hacked. None of it was about the person or customers from WFCU being hacked. What happens with this type of particular problem is they will find information somewhere else. They'll break into Shoppers, they'll break into a chicken soup recipe site, they'll break into something low level that has nothing to do with your money or your credit cards, but it does have your email and your password. Now, if we have statistics that say 60% of you reuse your passwords everywhere you go, if I can hack into Shoppers, I'll take 60% of that list and I'll start signing into CIBC. I'll start signing into Canada Revenue. I'll start signing into the LCBO. I'll sign in all over the place with 60% of your list and know that I can get in. You weren't hacked. They weren't hacked. Somebody else down the chain where you're using that password and email everywhere you go. It's basically like having a single key for your house and your workplace and your car, and everything's all on one key and you lose it with your address written on it. You're going to get peeled apart very quickly. So this situation of people reusing their passwords everywhere is caused because people think they have to memorize these passwords. So as soon as you let that belief go and start doing those things properly, all of a sudden this problem disappears. So even Norton, who provides security software and provides password management, somebody went into another website somewhere else, got a list of customers and their passwords and emails, then went to Norton and started using 60% of them to log in and get everybody's password list from the security company. It will, like I said, they will spend time and effort taking your name and email from, like I said, a simple chicken soup recipe site. It's got nothing to do with your money, nothing to do with your credit cards, but they know that that password you're using everywhere else you go. They will find it and they will empty you out within hours. This is an ongoing problem that law enforcement cannot educate people fast enough about. Yes?
You're saying that because I had this at McDonald's at that point, I
Mhm.
go through there. Somebody was taking my box number or whatever and charging McDonald's again.
Yep.
And we had to change my credit card.
Yep, absolutely. And the information they might have found may not, you could do everything that's in that book that I've written, and another company could get hacked because they have weak security. Not because this company has weak security, not because you have weak security, but somewhere else they did and let your information out. So if you have a same password used over and over, first of all, let's make a new password and each one make it unique. Because there's an actual reason they tell you, don't do this stuff. This is one of them. This is getting bigger and bigger worldwide because of human behavior and the belief that people are supposed to memorize all their passwords. One of the biggest things that is important about this credential stuffing, like I said, getting your information, your password and all that stuff, and then trying it in other places. The biggest problem that this has is the hackers know that 60% of you are doing this. They know that just about any website that they can get into or get a list out of, 60% of those people are using that password somewhere else. So it's not just the educators or law enforcement trying to tell you you shouldn't do this. We're telling you this is why you shouldn't do this, because the hackers know it and they will find your other accounts. So keep the passwords unique everywhere you go. If you're finding that to be too overwhelming a task, at least at a bare minimum, keep different passwords on your main accounts. Your bank, your credit union, your email accounts. At least do those so they're not connected with this password that you're using everywhere. So that's the bare minimum that you should be doing. I would highly recommend to do more than that, but like I said, a lot of people find some of this stuff a little intimidating, and so if you're not going to go through your whole password or account list and change everything to make it all unique, at least do the important ones so that they're isolated and safe. Yes?
Is this applicable to credit cards also?
Absolutely. Yep. If I log into Shoppers or I hack into Shoppers and steal their customer database, and I know 60% of people reuse those passwords, yeah, I'll go log into Visa. I'll go log into MasterCard, because I know that 60% of those people might have that password sitting there as well. So a lot of times when people get hacked, it's not necessarily that they got hacked, it's that they basically use the same key on every door that they own and somebody found the key. So it's kind of a self-inflicted wound, to say the least. And it's something really easy to fix just by changing passwords on really important accounts.
I did have a question about that.
Yes?
So say in the past, you logged into all these stupid things like cooking and all these different places.
Right.
How do you get off of those lists?
Well, you try to get back into those companies and into those websites and disable your account. Or it's some account you had 10 years ago. You don't remember the password. Well, try the recovery options and reset your password, and then you can get in, and then you can shut it down if it's something you don't use. But if it's just some 10-year-old account, you haven't even used it since then, but it has that password that you're using everywhere else, you're basically leaving, you know, your junk mail out on the street for other people to see. So you need to have some diligence about old accounts as well, not just new ones.
So once you've got individual passwords for all these accounts,
Yep.
you need to keep changing them over every...
A reasonable period of time. It's again, like I said, instead of just telling you the things you should do, I also try to give the information about how important that actually is. I would say on important accounts, credit cards, bank, Canada Revenue, stuff that involves your finances, your identity, once a year to once every 2 years, change those up. Because if somebody hacked into one of those companies, they may not even act on it. A lot of times when a company gets hacked, the hacker will sit on that information for at least 9 months, if not longer. Because the first couple months of you being told that, you know, Equifax got hacked or Canada Revenue got hacked, you're on high alert. You might even sign up for credit monitoring. You might do all kinds of things. And on average, out of about 9 months, people finally start calming down that this wasn't a big deal. Again, hackers know this. So if they know at about 9 months you're going to finally drop your guard and think that you're okay, then they'll start using and hacking into the accounts with the passwords they had. So if somebody hacked into one of your accounts, the company never even notified you it got hacked, well, a year later, I've changed that password anyway. So by the time I see it in the news that, you know, WFCU got hacked or something got hacked, well, my password isn't the same as it was last year anyway. And like I said, even at a bare minimum, if you at least do this with your main priority accounts, that'll at least keep you a lot safer than not doing any of this stuff at all. So you should use a unique password for every account. And if somebody thinks that, that's a lot of work, trust me, I understand. I have 15 pages of accounts. So for me to just sit down tomorrow and try to change every one of those passwords, obviously that's not a reasonable task to expect most people to do. If you at least keep your main ones, maybe once a year, maybe once every year and a half, change up those passwords and keep those on the fly, that's at least going to provide you a lot more security. Yes?
What about Face ID and Thumbprint ID?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What about Faceprint ID?
Yeah.
Thumbprint ID?
Again, the people that are manipulating that or hacking that, it's not going to affect the average user. So for the average user, I would say that's a safe thing to do, for sure. So some other activity on your account and requires you to put in a PIN or requires a Face ID or some kind of ID as a secondary thing, they're definitely good to use when they're available. So I gave handouts and it's a password list for you guys to write down your stuff. But again, I like to kind of take it one step further and explain another issue that a lot of people don't really know about until there's an actual problem. The second page of those handouts that I gave you is not just another copy of the same list. This is a password, this is for recovery. So when you sign up for an account, whether it's an email account, a bank account, something, they'll usually ask you for a recovery email. So if you get locked out of your account, who can they send a message to, or who can they call, or who can they text to give you a code to get back into your accounts? A lot of people will forget about this, and this is usually in my old workplace. We had a carpet right in front of my desk there, and the boss would call that the carpet of tears, because people will come in and they're locked out of their account. And it's like, okay, well, what's your recovery email? Well, it's with Bell, and I was with them 15 years ago. I'm not with them anymore. It's like, okay, well, the company can't get a hold of you there. What's the recovery email or phone number? Oh, well, it's with this old phone. I don't live there anymore. We've moved on. I have a new number. Well, how do you expect that company to get a hold of you to recover your account? It would be the equivalent of going to a bank and saying, well, I don't have any ID, but give me some money. Well, I can give you new ID after you give me the money, though. They're not going to do that kind of stuff. So you locked out of the account and saying, well, but I have a new phone number. And they say, okay, that's nice, but you still need to get in to be able to change your phone number. So, and if some of your accounts, especially again, those main accounts, your emails, your bank, your credit cards, the recovery information is just as important as the information that you have for your username and your password. So also keep record of where your recovery information is, and if it's an old phone number, get them up to date. If it's an old email, get them up to date. If you don't have a secondary email, or there's people I deal with doing stuff on the computer, but they still don't have a smartphone. And that's fine, that's not a big deal. If you don't use a smartphone, you don't have to have one. Put in a neighbor's phone number, put in a relative's phone number. You get locked out of your account, your bank can call your daughter or your son and give them a code and you can get back in. So there's all sorts of ways around this if you don't have secondary information. You can use a friend or family member, and that way at least somebody can be contacted in case there's a problem. So that second page, I recommend going through that and going over your main accounts and making sure that you have recovery information to get back in. A lot of these companies, online companies, even regular brick and mortar companies nowadays, a lot of them don't have customer service. A lot of them don't even have a phone number when you look them up on the internet of who to actually call when something's wrong. You might get a little chat window at best, or it'll just direct you to some form to log back in and recover your stuff. And it's all self-serve. So if you don't know that you need to keep that old phone number, or that old email up to date, they're not going to call you to tell you. You need to keep this stuff up to date on your own, because once you get locked out, you may be locked out permanently and no phone number to call.
Is it the same thing as when they ask you what was your first employment? What's the first car you ever used? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, stuff like that. So that kind of information, keep record of it and write it down. And you don't even have to give them real information. That's another thing that, when a website is asking, what your first job is for a security question, or what's your mother's maiden name as a security question. I actually want to yell at these companies because most people, you can look up online, see a whole list of all their relatives, and I can tell what your mother's maiden name is by some of your relatives. That's not really a good, secure thing with the amount of information that's out there about people. So when they...
But that would be a recovery mode.
That's right, that's the recovery mode. So instead of giving them your real mother's maiden name, make one up. It's none of their business what it actually is. They're just asking a question. So you can tell them your mother's maiden name is Bill Gates.
How about Donald Duck?
Donald Duck. But the important thing is, write it down, that was your answer for that company. So nobody else knows that you've answered Donald Duck for your security information, but you know that because you wrote it down. So that's actually a really good way to handle some of the lesser secure questions that they ask you, because some of them really makes me scratch my head why they're asking a maiden name. Like, that's something almost anybody can find out. It's a really silly, weak question. So you can give it a personal answer, write it down on the sheet that is your answer. All right, any questions on that?
What does 2FA stand for?
Okay, it stands for two-factor authentication, and there is a list of ways that this can happen. If I was to log into my email from here, it would actually pop a message up on my phone saying there's a new login at a different location. And I have to hit yes, that was me, thank you. That is a second factor on top of your password. So your password is the first factor for authenticating things, and it might be a fingerprint on your phone, and you have a PIN, so it is a secondary piece of information on top of what you've used before, other than just a password. And there's different examples of them, but anywhere that they make use of them, usually high security accounts will request one of them. Your bank, credit card, Canada Revenue, they'll send a code to an email for you to get in. So that's on top of the password as well. Anywhere that option is available for your accounts, I'd highly recommend turning it on and making use of it. Yes?
So related to this is my bank had this two-step, and it would go through my cell phone and give me a number to enter.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
But today it disappeared.
Well, I'd definitely give them a call.
Okay, because to get it, they want me to get the app, and I never did download the app on my phone, but somehow I got them to send me that number.
Yeah, you'd have to give them a call and ask them to set up whatever they have set up for that bank. Most banks do have it, and I'd highly recommend it, because not only does it add another layer so someone can't get in, but you're going to get a notice on your phone if someone's trying to get in. So if somebody tries to get into my bank account, right away my phone's going to start beeping telling me, hey, is this you trying? And I can hit no, it's not. So there's a lot of reasons for it.
My fear was more downloading another app on my phone, but downloading like a bank app.
Yeah, you would assume that the bank app is reasonably secure.
Yeah.
And most of them spend some pretty good money on making those. Yes?
I have found with that second thing where it says you have to say yes, it was you.
Yeah,
If you look at the location, it'll tell you it's Toronto.
that's right.
So it kind of stopped. me
Well,
from-
Windsor's kind of in a weird position as far as where we're hooked up in the World Wide Web. A lot of our connections, whether you're with Bell, Cogeco, MNSI, the trunk lines is what they're referred to. They may actually bounce us all the way to connect to Toronto, and then Toronto to the internet. MNSI has some lines that connect over to Detroit. So when you log in from here, the trace back might be saying this is logged in from Detroit, but most of them, it should be your general vicinity. So from here to Toronto, I would say it's probably likely your own connection.
Yeah.
Not always, but
It stopped me.
probably. So I'd put that down on the lower, less stress list. But if it says Zimbabwe, it's probably not you. So take it with a grain of salt that within the region, your internet provider might locate you like that. And that's another reason that falls back on that VPN stuff. In the States, it may actually be able to trace your IP address right down to the block that you live on. In Canada, people can't do that. The IP address given by your internet provider may provide your region, and that's about it. Anything further, they need a court order to find out where you are. So the VPN stuff is a lot of smoke and mirrors for Canadians if you're not traveling. Okay, so getting into email safety, which is obviously another issue. So I had somebody come up to me earlier with their tablet. Yep, there you go. Okay, so it had I'm just looking at the Norton status update. It had an email on there saying it was from Microsoft, and there was a problem, somebody was trying to access their account. Now on a tablet, when you hit who that comes from, you can't actually see. All you see is the name, but you don't see the actual email where it comes from. So for important email like your banking or government stuff or security stuff, take a look at it on a regular device. When you're looking on email on a regular device instead of a portable device, like a tablet or a phone, if I was to hover my mouse over the address, it'll actually show me where that's coming from. So the email might say Microsoft Security, but you hover your mouse over it and it's a completely unrelated address. That's usually your first defense at getting rid of junk email or scam email, is actually understanding where it comes from. So because you can't do that on a lot of portable devices, they'll just say Microsoft Security, but you can't see the address behind it. Don't handle important emails on portable devices because you may end up just exposing yourself to a security issue instead. So if here's the question about where it came from, take a look at it on a regular computer and find out where the links are. Same thing, if there's, the email has an address that says click here to go to the site. Well, you hover your mouse over it, and down in the corner, most browsers will say this is going to Microsoft.com. Oh, well, that's legit, so that's actually where it's going. But if you hover over it and it says click here to go to Microsoft, and you put your mouse over it, and it's going to some weird website, you know it's obviously a scam. So that's a really easy way to diffuse a lot of these scam emails. I get a lot of people telling me, they'll get emails from Norton or McAfee or Apple or Microsoft, and they'll say, well, it just looks so legit. But of course, then I start asking the question of, well, what does legit look like? So people kind of have this mental picture of what an email should look like, and that's what hackers make their email look like because that's what you guys are expecting. Take a look at the address this stuff actually comes from, and you'll find that a lot more useful. Yes?
Is there ever a time when Microsoft would ever want to be contacting you about your computer? I mean, it's...
Over the phone, never.
Or even in an email, like, I don't... Microsoft
very,
is a
very
software
unlikely.
program, is it not? And we just utilize it.
That's right.
And they're not going to contact every individual of millions of people.
That's right, and that's the kind of information we try to give people in classes like this. The phone rings with certain types of scams. Oh, this is Microsoft calling. We notice you have a problem with your computer. It looks like it's infected. We're here to help.
Yeah.
Microsoft has no way of seeing that in your computer. But people who aren't very savvy with this stuff, that seems like a believable scenario that Microsoft might be able to see your computer. So if they say there's a virus, well, I guess there's a virus. They can't see that kind of stuff, just like they can't see a live picture of your house. So they use stuff like that to confuse people and get them to panic. And as soon as you start panicking, that's when all the defenses come down with the scams. Yes?
I think sometimes we get that feeling that there's somebody able to look in on our computers because
You're right, but when you know that they can't do that.
If we're in a big organization such as Hotel Hospital a long time ago, they had an IT department that if you had problems with your computer at your desk,
Right.
they could look in and fix things.
Monitor within the company,
And so
absolutely.
that was within our company, so it's not, so that, you know,
It
in the back of
seems
your mind, you
plausible.
figure, oh, it is
Yeah.
possible that
That's
they
right.
can see, so they can't.
But as soon as you know that they can't see stuff like that over the internet, or even if you buy Norton can't see that stuff. They're not going to call you all of a sudden. There isn't that level of ability. But people believe it's possible,
Yeah.
and that's what makes the best scams, is something that's plausible, but you're not really sure, and they will draw you in and get you to panic because something's wrong. Yes?
Where it says there, do not respond on portable devices, so you're saying that the only way you respond to those is a hard funding computer in your home?
It'd be a recommendation.
So people with laptops, that's still considered portable?
Sorry, that would be running a Windows operating system. So I guess I'm more referring to portable operating systems like Android or the iOS for an iPhone.
So it'd be your tablet or your
Yeah.
telephone, but not your laptop?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if you're even with a Mac, if you open up email on a Mac and you hover your mouse over an address, it'll actually show you what it's actually showing. So it's not that you can't reply to those on a tablet or a phone, it's that if you can't see if that mail actually came from Microsoft, or you can't see if it actually came from Canada Revenue, why would you want to reply to it on your tablet or phone? So I would recommend, if you're looking at something and you realize, hey, this is important, don't do it on a portable device, because portable devices are convenient. They're not secure. Yes?
I have a Samsung phone, and I went to an email, I pressed the name, who it's from, and it says verify sender.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows me who the sender is, whether it's legit or not.
If you can do that on your phone, it definitely is what you should be doing. And they're catching
Coming
up.
with stuff.
Yeah, they are catching up with some of the mobile emails. They're not quite there with all of them, but like you said, you have a Samsung and that gives you that option, so that's great. Yeah, it makes a big difference. So, unsolicited email is definitely the key word in there. So if you're signed up for a newsletter or something and they're sending you a lot, go ahead and log in and unsubscribe or use the unsubscribe button. But if it's not an email you asked for in the first place, all the unsubscribe button is doing is verifying to the scammers that there's a real person at the end of that address, and you will get even more scam email afterwards. So if it's not something you signed up for yourself, don't use the unsubscribe. That's just another link on the scam email to scam you more. So if it's something you didn't subscribe to, learn how to block it or just delete it. Okay?
I went to unsubscribe.
Okay, so this is what I was referring to. So this is a screen capture of Outlook, the program. So in Outlook, when it says, you know, the name of the email sender is Netflix client service, but you look at the email address that's actually associated with it, it's not even spelled right. They use gc.ca because to Canadians that's government stuff. Well, what the hell does Netflix have with government stuff? But it gets people to go, oh, and gets that panic to set in again. Oh, this must be real. It's from netflix.gc.ca. That sounds right. But of course, they didn't even spell Netflix right. There's no T in it, and gc.ca doesn't really apply to a movie company. But they do stuff like that to kind of get it to look like it's legitimate. So those are the kinds of things that, like I was saying, you can't really do on your cell phone or on your tablet. So try to respond to emails more on a regular system when you're able to. Yeah, there was a question? Oh, okay.
I want to go back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
You get to the Microsoft account thing that are bogus.
I'm sorry?
You get those bogus Microsoft emails, just clicking on them and deleting them, is that sufficient?
It is, because they're gonna send more. Think of junk email like you getting pizza flyers in your mailbox at home. There's not a real good way to stop them. You can put a no junk mail sign on your mailbox, but you're still gonna get stuff being sent to you. So unfortunately, a lot of times, you just delete the junk or slowly learn how to block that particular sender. But even blocking people really isn't that effective, because a lot of these scammers and scam artists, they just use generic emails. They'll send stuff all day long using one email. The service providers will block that email, and then tomorrow they'll use a different email. So you're constantly going to be chasing your tail if you try to block everything. Just deleting stuff is usually just the most sane way to deal with it. Okay, so another thing for email safety. Back in the old days when we still had carbon copies and carbon of different letters that we'd send out professionally, there was always a notation on the bottom about CC or BCC, if anybody remembers those. So they still have that feature for email providers. So CC is you're carbon copying the email to someone else. BCC is also an option that's available in email programs. And what that stands for is blind carbon copy. So everyone who gets that email in a big list, nobody sees each other's addresses. So you can send the whole list out, but you're using it under BCC instead of having 15 addresses show up on everybody's email that you sent it to. I do see that happen even with professional companies. They'll send out a bulk email to some of their clients, and they'll include under the regular area every single client's email, so you're ending up with everyone's email that you don't even know. So this kind of stuff, if you're using large group emails, always make sure you use BCC and at least protect the privacy of the people that you're sending your stuff to. So this is also just an etiquette thing, never mind a security thing. You know, if you're forwarding an email that was sent to you, don't forward it without someone's actual permission to be able to do that. What you can do is you can copy the body of an email, put it in your own, and then send it. You don't have to send it with the original person's email and everything else. So not just for security reasons, like I said, for etiquette as well. It's just a polite thing to do. So one of the things I was mentioning earlier to somebody, on top of having different passwords for all your stuff, a really easy technique to maintain and to use that keeps you really secure is also having multiple email addresses. So whether you're with Bell, Cogeco, MNSI, Gmail, Hotmail, doesn't really matter. You can have multiple addresses within that company. So you can use one set of emails for everything financial, or one set of emails for all your shopping, another set of emails for everything that's junk mail. So even if somewhere along the line one of those companies or websites gets hacked with that email, they don't have access to absolutely everything you own. So you can actually divide up your emails as well. Certain emails are just for certain types of accounts. So like I said, with Bell, Cogeco, all those companies, they offer you multiple emails. Most people don't make use of them. They only have one with the company. So you get all these for free as part of your account. So using different emails is also an extra security feature that you can use.
So the number two.
Yes.
I have never asked permission, but when I do send it, I delete like all the addresses. And
Yeah, that's great, and that's fine too.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as long as what you're sending isn't private, sure, but yes, that is an okay way to do it as well. Okay, and then we're gonna get into the last section, and this one is more for your sanity as much as your computer and your safety. Is a lot of problems with computers are a lot to do with junk programs because same thing again, they kind of rely on your lack of knowledge on whether you need this stuff. You'll be browsing the internet and there'll be a pop-up about some certain program that you have to make your security better or your internet faster or your downloads easier. Some kind of snake oil stuff, and this kind of salesmanship, it's been around as long as there's been money and people. So it's all just snake oil stuff to try to get you to download these garbage programs. So whether it's a tune-up utility to make your computer faster, or a web optimizer, a media player, even zip stuff. Years and years ago, for Windows users, to open up any kind of zip file, you would have to use a program called WinZip. It's been obsolete and unnecessary for at least 12 years now. Windows has the ability to handle a zip file on its own. You don't need a program, but you'll still see people installing WinZip because they think they have to have it. And the only thing that the WinZip does on their computer is send them lots of ads. So for other stuff, it may not just be an advertising issue of them sending you constant junk to buy something. It may actually end up damaging your computer. So most stuff in your computer, you can take care of your own maintenance, you can clean up your own junk files, you can do all that stuff on your own. And most of the programs that offer to do it for you for free, there's just like the rest of the world, if it's free, there's usually some catch somewhere. Yep.
So is like the assistant in that category? I can't recall if it's Google Assistant or Gmail Assistant.
No, that's provided by the company, and if you feel you need what it offers,
What does it do? I don't understand.
then you don't need it. You asked the perfect question. That is the exact question with a lot of these things offering whatever they're offering is, well, do I need that? If you're asking yourself that while you're getting it, you don't need it. So if you run into a problem, you're opening up a zip file and it won't open, you need to go get a program to handle it. If you're not and it's just this ad on a web page saying, click here to get this, don't bother, it's not necessary. Constantly, yeah. It's a persistent, irritating way to get your attention and get you to buy something. Yes?
So, I get, on my phone, it comes with, when I go into settings, it has optimizer, it has clean up data.
Yep.
That's actually from the manufacturer of the phone, right? That's not-
Maybe. It most likely is. Like if you didn't put that in, then yes, the phone will offer its own utilities.
It came with the phone.
That's right. So,
And it says it
and that's all you need.
optimizes, and then if I say clean up,
Yep.
it'll give me a whole bunch of stuff and recommend clean up on
That's
junk
right.
files and stuff.
And that's fine if it
So
comes
is
from the
that-
manufacturer.
That's not something I downloaded, that was on the phone.
That's right, and it's fine to
It's
use.
okay?
Yep, it's okay. But people will often go and look for programs to clean up their stuff or to scan for whatever, or to optimize your internet experience. You can usually tell the flowery language they use with offering stuff. You know, it enhances your internet experience. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know, but it sounds really good in the marketing ad. So stuff like that, we already know, infomercials, and this is just the modern equivalent of it, that's all. So the majority of these programs, if they don't actually damage your computer by using it, they're most likely not needed and probably just as sorts of advertising or monitoring what you do on the internet, and that's why they gave it to you for free. So overall, you can get rid of all this stuff. On top of it being an intrusive level of advertising, and most of them are actually just spyware, that's why they gave it to you for free. One of the things that you can look into on the internet, there's a wonderful website called shouldiremove.com. And you can actually look up names of different programs that you might notice on your computer. You type it in on their website and they'll tell you all about it, what other people think, if it was garbage, if they should have taken it out. It'll explain what the program is if you're not familiar. So it'll give you a lot of information. But one of the things I like the most about that website is when you go to the website, it will have a list of different programs and kind of explain to you what junk programs actually look like. So you kind of get a feel of what are these junky programs that keep bugging me to buy, and you'll actually kind of get used to and be able to recognize them after a while because you'll get used to the kinds of stuff that's on there.
And no paywall.
I'm sorry?
No paywall.
No. This particular site's been around a very long time actually, and quite useful. So it's definitely something I can recommend safely to people. Okay, so for a lot of junk programs that are on the computer you may not recognize or may not know what they are, the easiest way is jump on Google, look up the name of it, or go to that one website, Should I Remove It, and look it up and see what the program is. If you're not sure, or it does say it's something damaging or harmful in your computer and you can't get rid of it, which does happen, you can use one of these two programs I would highly recommend. A lot of virus scanners and security software, they focus a lot on viruses. And again, talking to you guys about the level of concern that you should have about stuff, viruses, as far as a concern, should be about a 2 out of 10. In the actual shop that I work at, people bringing stuff in that has an actual virus infection is very rare. A lot of times it's junk programs or harmful programs or something that's spyware or whatever issue is going on, but an actual virus is something different. They present some of these security companies or security software to take care of all this stuff, but they just focus on viruses, and that's actually not the usual problem that you're gonna have. That's not to say get rid of your virus scanner. It's that it's on a priority level, it's a lower level than what they pitch with all the advertising. The main problem that you're gonna run into as a home user is more likely gonna be you've clicked on an ad or something, it hijacked your web page, now every time you turn on the internet it goes to a Russian poker site. That's not a virus. That's something you don't want. It's something that might be dangerous, but it's not a virus. So when your virus program seeing you click on that, it says, oh, you must want this, so we'll allow this to happen. Malwarebytes and ADW Cleaner will clean out that type of stuff that's harmful or dangerous, but it's not necessarily a virus. So your virus program may actually allow this to happen, but this program will clean it up and give you some suggestions that, you know, you might not actually want that, you know, Russian poker site to be your home page anymore. It's not really something that they're recommending. So they'll kind of, you can use this alongside of your virus or security software. So you can just use it as a one-time scan and take the program back out, but it can be used alongside your security stuff.
Will it identify programs?
Yeah.
You just load it on, it will identify them?
It'll tell you if something is a known junk or dangerous program that isn't necessarily a virus, but it still can be dangerous. So it will recommend that to you and recommend to clean it and take it out. You can, there is a paid version of the Malwarebytes program. I think it's around $30, $35 or something. It's up to you if you want to do it. They have the same business model as a lot of other security software. The free versions, you usually have to do the update, you have to start the scan, you have to take a look at the settings. And the automatic versions, it will automatic update for you, automatically scan, and that's basically their business model for selling the software. If you don't mind clicking the update and clicking the scan button, save your $35, the free one works just fine. All right, anybody have any questions about any of this stuff? Yes?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I'm running Windows 11 on my computer, and the other week there when I was doing something, I don't remember what, it told me that I needed to install Adobe Reader.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yep.
So, some people say you shouldn't have that, some people say you should, I don't really know.
For us in Canada, what I could recommend, browsers nowadays like Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and some of the other ones, they'll open up a PDF for you. So you don't need another piece of software to read PDFs anymore. But with the security features inside a PDF that might be possible, stuff like a VeriSign or, you know, a secure signature or something on a government website, if you down.
That I had to put a signature on for the government.
There you go. So that exact scenario, yes. You would download Adobe and it would provide that level of security on a secure PDF.
Now, when I've done that, should I then take Adobe out?
Yeah, you could. And put it back in when you need it again. It doesn't need to sit there. So for reading day-to-day PDFs and stuff like that, no, your browser can do that for you. For secure stuff and government website stuff, yeah, you need.
First time I'd ever seen that happen.
Yeah, because the government websites, they've gotten a lot of flack for some of their security issues too. Even Canada Revenue got hacked. So a lot of the government websites, when you get forms and stuff from that, they have a secure form, and it usually requires the Acrobat software to read it. And then once you're done, yeah, you can take it back out.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to jump.
Yeah, I'm sorry if it glares off my glasses there.
I use an iPad at home for a lot of my banking and that kind of stuff. It never leaves my house, it's
Right.
just at home. And I have a lot of passwords stored on there, and it needs my fingerprint to.
Yeah.
Is that safe, or should I?
To a reasonable degree, yeah. Taking it out of the device is even more safe, but like I said, it's a reasonable degree. You have to have a password or a fingerprint to get in there. The Apple devices are reasonably secure as well. Better would be to, you know, have it written down outside of the device, because if something does compromise the device in some way, well, your passwords are stored on it.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
thing, the password.
The likelihood of it happening, and again, like I said, I like really talking to people about how real is that to happen. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I put that about a 1 that something could happen. So can you keep that on your iPad? Sure. Is it
Yeah,
absolutely
I
the
do
best
usually have
way?
My password's written somewhere else, but it's just
Yes.
easier instead of, going to the book, I just use my
Yeah.
fingerprint.
So it's got a reasonable level of security. How's that? Yes?
I have Malwarebytes and
Yep.
AVG antivirus. Is
Yep.
that being redundant?
No, because they do two different things. So the other question would be, on what type of device do you have those two softwares? On a Windows device, on an
Yes,
Apple
Windows.
device? Okay, is it Windows anything after Windows 7?
Yes.
then it's redundant. For the AVG part, Windows has its own antivirus. AVG is not going to call you up and ask you that. They want to sell you the full version or sell you something else. So,
So I'm going to eliminate one of those two, AVG.
yes, Malwarebytes scans for mostly user-inflicted problems, I guess is the best way to put it. So Malwarebytes is more your friend for that stuff. The AVG, is something I talked about for years on the topic with the security companies, AVG, Microsoft, or McAfee, Norton, Avast, all of those companies. Think of them in the same equation as home security companies. So like in Windsor, we have Kelcom as their One Security is another security company in Windsor. So you call them up and you want a door alarm for the front of your house. The security guy shows up and he's also trying to sell you basement flood protection and CO2 monitoring and all these other features. And meanwhile, you don't have a basement, you don't even own a furnace. That's what these security companies with software have become. It's not that what they're selling you is not real. It's a real virus scanner. Virus scanners are important. Like I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're about a 2 as far as how concerned you should be about viruses. But it's not don't be concerned, it's that it's not at a 10 out of 10 like these companies pretend it is. And you don't need to buy all these extra features in these big suites that they're selling you because they won't ask you, are you running Microsoft? Well, you already have a virus scanner, so I guess you don't need it. Thanks anyway. They're not going to do that. They will sell you as much stuff regardless of whether you even know what it is or if you need it. So again, going back to that comparison with security companies, it's the guy coming in and trying to sell you basement flood protection and you don't have a basement. If you have a basement, it's a good thing to have that protection. If you're doing certain things that whatever the virus or security suite, if you're doing things that are relevant to that security program, go ahead, they're good programs. There's nothing wrong with Norton, McAfee, Avast, AVG, they're all fine, but you already have one. So, and the one that's built in isn't going to send you ads, it's not going to expire, it's not going to bug you at the end of the year that you're going to be unsafe unless you renew your stuff. It's more turned into marketing stuff than actual whether or not you need it or not. And most people don't know that. They'll renew their Norton subscription every year because they'll be barraged for a month with your device is not secure unless you renew this. Yeah. And like I said, they won't even ask if the device you're using it happens to be a Microsoft device with security already built into it. So the Windows, since Windows 7, has security, has antivirus protection, has a firewall built in, has malware protection. It's got all that built in. And all of that shuts off when you put in your own. But most of the time when you put in your own, people aren't putting it in because, well, I just like Norton. And that's fine. Go ahead, put it in. But I'll usually encounter people, I'll ask them, well, which features do you like? Well, I don't know, they just said I needed it. If that's your answer with the security software you're using, you probably don't need what they're selling you. It's not that the security program is fake, it's the question of do you need it?